I'm AP Townley, and welcome to the spooky Halloween edition of Roleplay Culture. Ha 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 ha! It's Halloween, and all things spooky are about. But doing spooky in D&D can be pretty hard. Horror in Dungeons & Dragons is troublesome to pull off, but there are some resources to help you out. I'm particularly fond of the Curse of Strahd campaign module. It does gothic horror pretty well. There are obviously certain monster types like undead or even aberrations, like mind flayers, that just lend themselves to the horrifying genre. But I want to look at more towards the movie horror genre for this inspiration. I'm thinking Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, classic horror movies like that. Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, Freddy Kreuger, or even newer killers like Ghostface. All terrifying individuals against the plucky heroes, and great fodder for our horror-themed adventure. So let's explore 3 horror-themed slasher builds for a Halloween edition of D&D 5e. A few things to note before we get started. I think to preserve the integrity of horror for these villains, then it would be best to use low-level parties. You still want your characters to have the feeling of helplessness, which is hard to do when your party members are dropping fireballs left and right, or making polearm master great weapon master attacks. So stick to low levels. I'll make suggestions as we go along. One other suggestion, which I admit I haven't tried myself, is to restrict the players to the human race. The idea behind this is all the characters being human, it will emphasize the inhumanity of the things they face. I guess there's just something scarier when it's a bunch of, pitiably little humans facing a terrifying slasher than, an 800-year-old elf, a wisecracking halfling, and some weird thry-creen bug guy. Tell me in the comments below if any of you have tried this, and what you think about it. Also, make sure to have a thorough Session 0 to discuss sensitive topics, and make sure everyone's on the same page. So, who's the first slasher on our list? Michael Myers.
You want to kill someone? Take me! Michael!
We'll keep things easy with a start. And you might be wondering why I consider Halloween's worst trick-or-treater easy. Because we're going to steal most of this from something that already exists. In the fell city of Baldur's Gate hides the cult of the Dead Three. Followers of Bane, the god of tyranny, Baal, the god of murder, and Merkel, the lord of bones. During the adventure, Baldur's Gate Descent into Avernus, the adventurers will first be tasked with hunting down cultists from the aforementioned gods. There are 3 specialized cultist types for each god of increasing challenge rating. The strongest cultist for the god of murder, Baal, is known as the Death's Head of Baal. And to give you an idea of how strong, CR5. So, nothing crazy. And when I looked over its stats, I was like, oh, look, it's Michael Myers. No, seriously, I don't think I would make any changes. It's basically just Michael Myers from Halloween. They're described as a knife-wielding, unstoppable killer with a skull-faced that's been flayed of its flesh. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? I'm not sure the Shatner mask is skull-like, but it's pretty close. So let's see what we have here. AC 15, not bad. 76 hit points, pretty light. 50 feet of movement speed, so that's really fast, as any slasher should be. Can't have those co-eds getting away from you. Wow, look at those stats. 20 in strength, dex, and con. Impressive. They have magic resistance. All right. They can focus their dead-eyed gaze on you and force a wisdom saving throw or you'll be stunned. Yeah, that sounds about right from that guy. In addition, they can make 2 dagger attacks. Michael was always running around with his signature chef knife. It does 1d4 plus 5 damage, which, man, that modifier adds a lot more damage than you think. They also have a reaction called Unstoppable that they can use 3 times per day. They can just say, nope, That attack does no damage to me. But it's the final part that really makes him nasty. They have an aura of murder. If they're within 5 feet of you, then you have vulnerability to piercing damage. Remember those 2 dagger attacks? With vulnerability, they're going to do an average of 15 damage apiece. Being resistant or immune to that damage negates the vulnerability effect. So, can take a beating, is terrifying, and can carve you up like a turkey. We're almost there. I think for this to be a truly famous killer, we need to add a little more to him. He's legendary after all, so let's give him some legendary resistances. 3 to be precise. Let's also give him 3 legendary actions. The first is that he can move up to his speed without provoking attacks of opportunity. Michael was always seen walking after his victims, yet always manages to catch them. For 2 actions, he can make a dagger attack. He is a slasher, after all. And for 3 actions, he can use his stunning gaze on another target. Because that is definitely terrifying. As for level, I would suggest that the characters be no higher than level 3, maybe even level 2. This villain is supposed to be very dangerous, but he's also alone. So the party can gang up on him, keeping them low level just keeps him more dangerous and therefore terrifying. As for encounters, let's imagine the characters find themselves in a peaceful, idyllic druid community. Basically, a village full of tree huggers. But this village has a dark history. Every 100 years on the solstice, a random person goes crazy and butchers their whole family. That time has come, and it's up to the adventurers to stop the murders from happening again. They'll find that some of these friendly, nature-loving druids are not quite what they seem. To keep their community flourishing, every century a family must be sacrificed. And a member of that family is taken over by some dark and malevolent spirit to do the deed. Our next slasher is Charles Lee Ray, but his friends call him Chucky.
Dirt, Tommy.
That laugh, man. That laugh will haunt you in your dreams. The titular killer from the Child's Play series, or Chucky series as I always called it, follows a serial strangler with a penchant for voodoo magic. After being mortally wounded, he transfers his soul into a doll so he can continue his murderous rampage. But as time goes on, his doll form becomes more and more human until he will be trapped in that form forever. So for this build, let's look to the assassin to start with. First, we'll change its type from medium humanoid to small construct. He is a doll, after all. AC 15, probably change that to natural armor, but otherwise same. 78 hit points, not bad. He has a bunch of skills that would probably double the deception bonus, especially if he's just pretending to be an inanimate doll, and intimidation. He might be small, but he is terrifying. As a construct, he wouldn't need to eat, sleep, or breathe, and would have immunity to poison damage and the poison condition, as well as resistance to non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. He gets Assassinate, Evasion, and 4d6 Sneak Attack. All super appropriate for a killer as sneaky as Chucky. He gets attacks with a short sword and a light crossbow. I would probably change that to a dagger and a hand crossbow for flavor, but doesn't really matter. I would suggest we remove the poison damage. That's an assassin thing, not a Chucky thing. We will also add a new attack, the Garrote. I mean, he is the Lakeshore Strangler after all. We will steal this from the Ettercap variant web attack. +6 to hit, 1d4 plus 3 damage, and the target is grappled. Attacks against the target from Chucky will now be at advantage, allowing him to use sneak attack more often. Oh, and the target can't breathe. I would say the target isn't prepared and can't hold their breath, immediately jumping to the suffocation rules. The target has a number of rounds equal to their Constitution modifier to get free or they drop to 0 hit points. Now remember, Chucky wants to get out of this body because he's becoming human in it. So he can transfer his soul to the one whom he first revealed his true name to. He can perform a ritual over the course of 10 minutes to do so as long as the target is either willing or restrained. As more time goes by, he becomes more human and starts losing his resistances. After week 1, no more poison condition immunity. Week 2, poison damage immunity is gone. Week 3, the need to eat, sleep, and breathe return. And week 4 removes damage resistances. After this week, he loses the construct type and returns to humanoid. And then he's stuck in that body. I would keep this encounter to a party of low-level members. Levels 2 to 3 again. This isn't going to be a stand-up fight. Chucky will do everything in his power to isolate the party members and kill them one by one. So I imagine a local lord hunted down and killed the Strangler by the shore. And soon after, the lord's son receives a gift of doll. And then the murders begin again, and the adventurers need to solve the crime before Chucky can take the child's soul. The adventure should take place in a manor or a castle. Chucky will utilize small vents, ducts, and passageways to move around and will trap the heck out of the place. He will hide amongst the child's many, many toys. If you chase him, he will run you through a gauntlet of pain, as well as use like pits and cages to separate the party members apart from each other so he can deal with them at his leisure. They will never look at an adorable little doll the same ever again.
You've been very naughty, Miss Kettlebell.
And finally, we come to the master of dreams and nightmares, Freddy Kreuger.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
A Nightmare on Elm Street, the movie that made you fear falling asleep at night lest your own dreams kill you. For Freddy, we'll start with the Night Hag's stats. They're known for attacking people in their dreams from the ethereal plane. So we get AC 17 and 112 hit points. To be clear, this is only applicable in the dream world. Freddy isn't just walking around town. You have to find him in your dreams before he finds you. I would probably add intimidation to his list of skills at +6. He's a very intimidating individual. He gets some resistances, sure. Let's get rid of those spells, not something Freddy really uses. The change shape ability will definitely come in handy. And then we have the claw attack for 2d8 plus 4 damage. That's fine, but it's Freddy's clawed hand. I want it to be more special than that. So the damage that it does will reduce the target's maximum hit points by that same amount, which is very nasty, but it's only one attack, and it's a melee attack, so there are ways to avoid it. The only way to get rid of it is through the Greater Restoration or similar magic spells. Now we come to the Nightmare Haunting, which, let's be honest, is why we modeled him after this monster. It's going to work a little differently with Freddy, though. He will target an area the size of a building. So if the target is alone, he only gets them, but if they're not, he gets the whole group. He won't deny your rest or lower your hit point maximum this way. Instead, he has other ways of doing that. You can choose to avoid this by not sleeping, but then you start accruing levels of exhaustion, which can kill you in its own right. Any damage he does to you in the dream world sticks with you in the waking, and of course, if you die there, you die for real. And Freddy collects your soul, evil or not.
Your wish is my command.
Now, when you're brought into the dream world by Freddy, you're essentially in his lair. So let's give him some lair actions. Lair actions take place on initiative count 20. First, he can use the spell Phantasmal Force without concentration on everyone in his lair. He makes your nightmares real. Another would be Dream Change. As he changes the setting of the dream, your ability scores flip. Strength becomes intelligence, dexterity for wisdom, and constitution for charisma. This will only last until he uses another lair action. But Freddy can choose not to use another lair action if the adventurers seem unable to adapt to this change. Finally, he can harness the powers of the boiler room in his fiery death. He can cast heat metal on a target without concentration. This will only last until he takes another lair action, though. Now, if you kill Freddy in the dream world, he doesn't stay dead. He's already dead. He'll just manifest again the next night. The only way to destroy him is to either grapple him in the dream world and have someone wake you up at the right time. This will drag him into the material plane where he can be destroyed. Or will it? Alternatively, you can find his corpse and consecrate it. But of course, he will animate it and fight back. Maybe this will destroy him. Until a sequel, at least. As for the adventure, make it personal. Have one of the characters return home with the party for a visit or perhaps investigate strange murders taking place. There, they will discover that their hometown and their families were involved in an insidious plot to be rid of some child killer years ago. And now he wants revenge on their children and the party. We could probably go a little bit higher level for this one. Level 7 to 8, I think, would be appropriate. So, there are some quick and dirty stats for some of the most famous slashers of the horror genre of movies for you to use in D&D 5e. If you want more Halloween goodness, then you're going to have to subscribe, ring the bell, smash that like button, tell me who your favorite horror movie villain is in the comments below, and I'll see you in the parlor.